I am delighted to be with you all this morning, and thanks, Tara, for inviting me to speak to this group. I want to talk about how we can unleash the agency of female entrepreneurs in the data for social impact space. Tara wanted me to start by introducing myself, but I believe Daniela has done a great job of that. But this mosaic of pictures here basically speak to the background that Daniela took you through. I have, in a nutshell, been in data science for more than 2 decades, worked in both for-profit and non-profit, and that's what you see on the screen here. Currently, I am with an organization, a global non-profit that is called data.org, and we have a vision that we want to live in a world in which people everywhere can use data and data science to solve society's greatest challenges and improve lives. And we do this by offering a platform for partnerships to build the field of data for social impact. We have a mandate that by 2032, we would have trained 1 million purpose-driven data practitioners around the world. And I'm going to focus on what it means to be a purpose-driven data practitioner for the rest of today's presentation. The mandate that I've been given in this short keynote is to address the question, can you do social good and make money? And I'm going to tell you with a resounding yes that you can do that. Here's the background. The background is that the world is tracking progress when it comes to social good based on the UN-defined Sustainable Development Goals. And that's what you see on this picture here on the screen here. I'm not going to go through it. I believe we all know what the SDG goals are. My point is that these are the guardrails. These are the parameters for doing social good. Where is the opportunity, you may ask? The opportunity is simple. We are tremendously off track in achieving these SDG goals, says the UN chief. So that is the opportunity, which means we have not met these goals. In fact, when you look around the world, we are faced with a conundrum of global systemic inequalities, whether it's in poverty or in gender inequality or financial inclusion. Wherever you look, we are facing systemic inequalities. Let me take a quick second to explain what I mean by systemic inequality. It simply says that there is no magic bullet out there. That is, that one size does not fit all. There isn't a direct line to addressing any of these issues that you see on the screen. It's multi-pronged, multi-dimensional. And I'm going to talk about how we can begin to advance approaches to address these systemic inequalities. Now, as if the world is not difficult enough, COVID struck about 3 years ago. So the global infrastructure for things like addressing gender inequality or food insecurity was set back by, maybe 3 decades. And this is a statement, not just in the developing world, but also in the so-called developed world. And we saw how the US and other Western nations struggled in addressing and combating COVID. So we are all behind. Now, you may say, is this all doom and gloom? No, that's our opportunity. What I'm saying is that data, artificial intelligence, and data science, that composition can help to solve these global systemic challenges and in the process, generate revenue for business. Here is my key message today. This can only happen if it is done right. So what do I mean by if it is done right? Let me explain some more. First, what we are looking for to address these SDGs is a new class of folks that we call datapreneurs, people who are versed in data and have an entrepreneurial spirit. For me, an entrepreneur is someone who's looking for novel ways to solve common problems, a visionary, an innovator. But in the process, we must all subscribe to the Hippocratic Oath that we will do no harm as we advance social impact. So what is the opportunity for these datapreneurs? In a nutshell, there is data everywhere. The world is data rich. At the last count, statistics says that every day, 2.5 quintillion megabytes of data is generated. To put that in perspective, for those who are in the audience and you're in the university, think about your university library. For each library, multiply that by 200, all the books in there. That's an approximation of what I mean by 2.5 quintillion megabytes of data. So we are data rich. That's not the problem. The problem is that we are knowledge poor. We are struggling in translating the data that we generate into knowledge. Here is the thing. Access to knowledge is limited to organizations that have the power and money to invest in skills, talent, infrastructure, and access. So there is an asymmetry. There is a digital divide that is happening in the world that only those who have power and money have access to knowledge. Think with me here. What if we democratize knowledge in a way that everyone really can benefit from it? And you say, what do I mean by democratization of knowledge? Let me explain a little more. And this is where data for social impact comes in. The way I want to explain this very simply is that it's going to take only those who are in the immediate environment. That is, it's going to take a local who's closest to the problem to find the best way to solve the problem. In other words, those who are affected by the problems need to step up to solve the problem. Let me explain with a story. As many of you would know, mobile payment and mobile money is now a universal trend, but it wasn't always this way. It started by a local company understanding the local problems and coming up with a solution. And this company is named Safaricom in Kenya. What was the problem? A long time ago in Kenya, there was one mobile payment company called Western Union. And Western Union will put its payment centers anywhere. And so folks living in the rural communities will have to trek long distance, sometimes 100 kilometers, just to get to these payment centers, right? And when they get there, right, they pay a heavy transaction cost. Sometimes just to withdraw 100 shillings, they have to pay a transaction cost of 30 shillings. Basically, they pay transportation fee out of that money, or those who trekked to get there and only come home with 70 shillings. That's robbery. And that's the problem. That was the local problem that Safaricom identified. And they realized that, you know what, we can actually do social good and make money. And what did they do? They democratized access to these payment centers by creating kiosks for agents now who are in these local communities to become the distribution centers for payment. And they used their existing mobile circuit to begin to do mobile money. And in the process, reduce the transaction costs. That's the point I'm making. It takes those who are closest to the problem to understand the problem and therefore become entrepreneurs to devise innovative ways to solve the problem. Let me bring this home in terms of our key theme today, which is speaking to female entrepreneurs. And the way I want to do this is to focus on something that is near and dear to my heart. You look at this screen here, and you see the burden of maternal mortality around the world, especially in Africa. Now, this graphic is actually misleading because maternal mortality is a global burden. In the US, underrepresented minorities, people of color, suffer greatly when it comes to maternal mortality. So this is a universal problem. And this is my message, that it takes those who are closest to the problem to understand the problem and therefore devise innovative ways to solve the problem. So I am calling on all female entrepreneurs that there is an opportunity here. We can't let thousands of women die in such a precious, joyous moment. Why? Because of access to knowledge. In some of these instances, I tell you that these women will be alive if they just have applications, apps that give them the right information on what to do prenatal and postnatal so that we can reduce the burden of maternal mortality. I hope this is clear as a universal problem. To bring my message home, so you ask, therefore, how do I become an entrepreneur? What business do I do to address this kind of thing. Here is the key impediment when it comes to data science and generating business from AI. It is access to good data. And I'm here to announce to you, female entrepreneurs who are closest to the problem, that is being solved. You've got to look in the right places. After this presentation, I'm going to share the slides through Technovation, and you can see the hyperlink at the top that gender disaggregated data is now available so that you can create apps that address these issues on behalf of women, by women, for women, and therefore do good and make money. Let me wrap up. On this screen here, basically, you look at data that can help us to develop better policies to improve the lives of women. Why? Because every time questionnaires and surveys are conducted to collect data, it's very male dominated. And oftentimes the female voice and the female data is obscured. I'm announcing to you that we now have access to better gender disaggregated data to begin to build new apps to generate good policies that can enhance the lives of women. Here's one more data point. You all know this, financial inclusion. Oh my goodness. When it comes to financial inclusion, currently the data is, does a woman have access to a mobile phone? Which is good, I understand that, but it is more than that. Because we know that when we improve the lot of women, when women are financially stable, the community itself is raised up. And I'm telling you now that we have better gender disaggregated data for women when it comes to financing that you can actually use to create apps that addresses financial inclusion for women. Finally, this is my example, and I love this. I said earlier on that we were all set back at least 2 decades because of COVID. We're already dealing with global systemic inequalities and COVID came. Now, the impact of COVID on women and underrepresented minorities is basically obscured. And in fact, there are no policies right now that are being designed or developed around the world to begin to uplift the status of women based on the impact of COVID. When women wants to start a business, we don't have the right data. Well, hey, here you have the UN women data that is already available to help you to understand what's the impact of COVID on this very vital demographic in our society and build apps to address those problems. Let me wrap up because I just have 10 minutes. Listen, friends, the work that we do in social good is complicated because of systemic challenges. But the reasons we do it are simple. First, we do no harm, but we want to advance the world that is more equitable and inclusive, and in the process, make money for ourselves and our community. I thank you all for listening, and I'll take questions. And if you need to reach me afterward, these are my follow-on details.